Ilkka, we're here in Paris as President Macron meets with tech leaders. You were one of the fastest growing European technology companies to 10 billion. How important was liaising with governments to your growth?
Well, of course, like in the early phases, government does play a role. Like in our case, for example, the founders, we invested our savings to the company, but on the back of that investment, also we raised this loan from the Finnish government. So in Finland, we have this really good public funding system for tech startups, and we we're lucky enough to get some benefit out of that.
You, of course, have majority owned by Tencent, but how do you keep the innovation at the company to ensure that the revenues keep flowing in and you're making about $2 billion a year overall, you're profitable? Where does that come in terms of innovation in the new games?
Well, it's really it's about sticking to our roots. So when we founded Supercell, the idea was to give all the possible power and the responsibility to the creative people, instead of the management. It really is the game teams at Supercell who have the most power, and everybody else around the teams, including the management and the founders, are there just to help these game teams being successful. And it's really sticking to that very idea of this having these small and independent game development cells, as we call them, and that's where the innovation comes from. So it's all about these talented game teams.
You have 4 games really with 100 million daily users. You've innovated on the games themselves, but do you need a new title?
Well, of course, every once in a while you need a new title, but if you look at the history of Supercell, so our game number 4, Clash Royale, came out roughly 2 years ago, and the one before that came out 2 years before that. So, it's not that...
So we do another?
Yeah. But, our vision of a company is that we want to do a very few number of titles, but then titles that people play for a very long time and which would then hopefully be remembered forever. So become part of a rich history of games.
Where is the rich history being created now? Where do you see the growth opportunities from a regional perspective?
Well, from a regional perspective, of course, China is very exciting for us. So that's already probably a third of the entire global market, and it's growing really, really fast. So that's one of the opportunities that's exciting to us. And one of our big, bold dreams, I guess, is to be the first games company who creates this first truly global mobile game. So a game that is sort of a hit game both in the Western markets, but then each of the 3 big Eastern markets, so China, Korea, and Japan.
To do that, is it about acquiring? You've made some acquisitions of some other game studios. How do you reach that aim, that dream?
Well, again, it comes back to the teams. So, what you need to create a great game, you need a very talented team that's given all the possible independence and responsibility. Then you need a lot of time, and then of course you need to be lucky. So we obviously been very lucky in what we've done so far, and you have to be patient. So this is not a thing for the next year. It's more of a vision for the next few decades.
You talk about the ecosystem in Finland and how it was helped by the fact that you have Rovio also designing games. It was sort of fueling the talent there. Rovio went public and has not experienced a very pleasant time with its share price. We're trading about 50% of where it listed. How have you decided that IPO it was better to be owned by Tencent? Did you ever look at the public markets? Are you pleased that you didn't?
Well, from our perspective, we've always wanted to be just entirely focused on creating the best teams, and what really makes us unique, I believe, is the culture, and in our belief in the long term. So long term for us is not the next 5 years. It's more about we've tried to think even longer than that. And as I said, our goal is to create these games that would be essentially remembered forever. And that's what is exciting for us, and we were sort of concerned that if we get stick to this thing about publishing quarterly results and giving guidance and so forth, it just didn't feel like a good match with our culture. So therefore we wanted to stay private, and of course we've been very lucky in a way that Tencent is probably the best possible partner you could ask for, in supporting our mission, and those guys, they completely share our vision and are backing it up.
And of course we're stood here in Paris, in Europe. We're not yet at Silicon Valley size in terms of the VC money going in or the valuation of the companies coming out. But do you feel that we're closing the gap? Do you think that this is the place that people should be building their businesses?
Well, sometimes it maybe disturbs me a little bit that a lot of the European entrepreneurs, they somehow are obsessed with comparing themselves and the European ecosystem to that of Silicon Valley. You know, I believe we can be very proud what they built here in Europe, and you know, it's only going to grow. And we have to remember it's still early days for the ecosystem. But and also I would say that, you know, Europe and say, for example, an ecosystem like Helsinki in Finland has its own strengths. So I don't think it makes sense to try to compete with the exact same things that Silicon Valley has. You know, we have other things that, you know, are unique to Europe and countries like Finland.